Good evening, everyone. Good evening. And welcome to our District 3 community meeting. Thank you for joining us this evening to connect with us and to receive important information and updates from our city executive team. First, I would like to thank Pacific Oaks College for their hospitality, President Jack Padutin and his office for their support in hosting us this evening. And in a moment, we'll hear from Mr. Michael Patton, the Dean of Students, shortly. For over 60 years, Pacific Oaks College has prepared students to serve diverse areas throughout California. Here at the Pasadena campus, one can study education, human development, psychology, business and management, and marriage and family therapy. And hopefully this partnership with Pacific Oaks will continue because, you know, as you're all aware, we purchased the property on Lake and Villa, the old Kaiser building, and hopefully we can bring mental health outpatient service there in partnering with Pacific Oaks. We are fortunate to have this academic institution in our own backyard. Our District 3 is diverse and rich in culture and history, and it's been my commitment to work together with everyone in this room and outside of this room to ensure that our district and our city continues to thrive. It is a privilege to be your representative on the Pasadena City Council. There's been a lot of activity in District 3, and I would like to share just some highlights, and then we'll bring up Public Works later to bring up some more highlights. The Robinson Park Pool and pool building will reopen this summer. The larger zero entry pool is designed to accommodate a wide range of community activities, which includes water fitness classes, lap swimming, and all levels of swimming lessons, lifeguard training, and community swimming. We also are getting ready to open the Union Protected Bike Lane, which will have its grand opening next month in front of City Hall. And the Sunset Complex project will provide a new reservoir design to meet current standards. We'll seismically retrofit that. And of course, our beloved Central Library is undergoing a much needed seismic retrofit and other upgrades. And then lastly, we do have Brenner Park, which is undergoing significant improvements in their playground. The city is starting to redesign the playground. And then we'll also have another community meeting later this month, I believe, or early next month. I've checked my calendar for the proposed layout for a one-way conversion of Morton Avenue between Hammond Street and Mountain Street. And so those are just some of the highlights that's occurring in our district and in our city. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the Dean of Students for Pacific Oaks College, Mr. Michael Patton.
Well, I'd like to welcome all of you to Pacific Oaks. Many don't know, but Pacific Oaks has been a part of the fabric of Pasadena for almost 80 years. We started as a children's school in 1945, and that children's school is still there today since 1945, right on California. Pacific Oaks College was born from the children's school. We started teaching children what we call anti-bias curriculum. Young children, 2, 3 years old. It's okay to recognize that someone is different from you. It's not okay to think you're better than them or they're better than you. It's a very basic concept, but it's so important for us in our society to recognize that diversity is something to be respected. And it's something that we need to know and understand that we need to include others who are different because their perspective adds value to what we see and what we do. So our core values at Pacific Oaks, respect, social justice, diversity, and inclusion are something that we believe in passionately. And we train our students here at the college to go out and be advocates in the community in whatever discipline they want. It's important for teachers to understand how to provide an inclusive classroom for their students of all demographics. It's important for therapists and clinicians to be able to understand their clients and meet them where they are. And it's important just for us as members of society to understand that differences are okay, but respect must be present at all times. And it's something that we really instill in our students. Every discipline that we teach at the college, which we just got an overview of, we infuse those core values into them. We're proud to be a part of Pasadena. We have a rich history. We have a rich people here in Pasadena. If you look around, look at who we are here. This is a great example of what makes up Pasadena. And we're glad to be here, and Pacific Oaks is very happy to be able to host this. This is what we do. We teach our students to be a part of your community, be engaged in your community, make sure that your voice is heard. Be at the table, sit there and be heard. And this is what you're all doing here tonight by being here. And so we thank you all for being here, and we welcome everybody here from the city to Pacific Oaks College. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so up next, we'll bring up our city manager, Miguel Márquez. Miguel has been with us for, I think now 1 year this month, or close to 1 year this month. And so he's done a phenomenal job in jumping into the city and really guiding the city departments, and we're lucky to have him here. So please welcome Miguel Márquez.
Thank you all. Great to see you all today, and thanks Pacific Oaks for hosting us today. Really appreciate it. So as Councilmember Jones said, I've been here almost a year. I started on August 29th. And though it's been a little bit less than a year, the challenges, the pace has been so relentless that we, myself and I think my police chief that we hired feels the same way. We count it in dog years. So even though it's technically 1, it's more like 7. At least it feels that way. But so what has been going on in that year? I think a big thing to report and update you on is to let you know that we in the city have an executive team of 21 people. Of those, 3 of us are appointed by the city council. It's myself, and I'm grateful to the council for having made that decision, the city attorney and the city clerk. The other 18 people are appointed by the city manager. So that's going to be my job. Of the 18 people that are on the executive team, by the end of this month, I will have appointed 9 people. So within my first year, half of the executive staff will have turned over and will be folks that I appointed. And that's really important to get the team together. So I spent, the better part of a year, among many other things, but conducting interviews, finding the best candidates. You're going to hear from one of them today, our police chief, Gene Harris, our general manager of water and power, Sydney Jackson. I also promoted David Reyes, who had been our planning director, to be assistant city manager. I promoted Brenda Harvey-Williams, who was the head of parks, to be an assistant city manager. I appointed Tim McDonald to be our head of libraries and municipal information. Who else did I appoint? I appointed Tiffany Jacobs-Quinn to be the director of HR. I appointed Jennifer Page to be director of planning, on and on. So you can see it's a big team. Another big foundational thing that we got done throughout this year, when I came, I think the city has about 2,300 employees, and most people belong to one of our labor unions. We have 9 labor unions in the city, and we had 2 of them under contract when I arrived. Since I've been here, we finished all the other 7, and so we have multi-year contracts, each of them 4 years long. So that means you're seeing now, they're calling it the hot summer of labor or something like that, because you're seeing yesterday in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, they had a 1-day strike, and 11,000 city workers went out for the day. There have been strikes at Kaiser. There have been strikes among riders. There have been strikes among so many different people. But for us here in Pasadena, we're fortunate that we had a very good bargaining sessions. We worked very cooperatively with our labor unions, and we have multi-year contracts with each of the 9. So that's going to bring labor peace to us so that we can better serve all of you. Councilmember Jones also mentioned the Kaiser site that we purchased out on Villa and Lake. So a quick update on that. We're moving forward expeditiously. The plan there is to bring mental health outpatient services, to bring some affordable housing, and all kinds of other possibilities. We still have to work those through, but first we have to own it. And there's been a little bit of a delay. The delay has to do with when you buy a property, you have to look at their environmental record. You do what's called a phase 1, a phase 2, and on and on. Phase 1 all looked very clear. It looked like all that was there was a shopping center before, I think, a grocery store. But one document said, it looks like there may have been a long time ago a gas station there. Once you have that gas station, you have to do all kinds of further testing. So it turns out there was a gas station way back in the day that nobody knew about. And so we have to deal with that, and that's going to extend the purchase of that property out into the October, November timeframe. So that's what's going on there, but we're still on pace to purchase it and try to get, again, mental health outpatient treatment services, which are going to be really important to the community. And we're partnering very closely with the County of Los Angeles, and we're grateful to have that partnership. Another big thing we did, I'll let Public Works Director Tony Olmos talk more about it. But like all of you, I drive on our streets, and I've been spending too much time avoiding potholes. And it's largely due because of the rains and also because of the condition of our streets. So we had a retreat with the city council, and we presented where we are on our streets. And we made a recommendation that we've been putting in about, maybe Tony can give you the exact numbers, my memory is about 5.9 million into our streets every year. And we said we need to, in order to stop the decline in our streets, we need to find more money. And we recommend for this year, 6 million more, almost double, more than double the amount. And so that's in this year's budget. You're going to see a lot more work on streets, and Tony can tell you a little bit more about that. But very happy with that decision and grateful that the council supported it. The other thing we did is just before I started, the state of California gave us about 60 acres of land where the 710 was going to come up and connect, called the 710 stub. So that's a process that's being worked through. It's going to be a long-term planning process, multi-year. But we put together a working group of advisors. I think they're called the Reconnecting Community 710 Working Group. It's a very diverse group, and they're going to try and provide good advice to the city council about what we should do with that land, how we should think about its history and everything else, and what would be best for community to do with those 60 acres. I think about 50 of them are contiguous, and that really gives us the opportunity in an urban area like this to have 50 acres to develop. To really, what I hope we can do is to build an ideal community and show the rest of the world what we in Pasadena came up with 50 acres, get a second chance at a planning process and build a beautiful community there. Another thing that I want to update you on is on the ballot back in November, there was Measure H, that's rent control. And it passed, and we now have rent control written into our city charter. Since that time of passage, the city council has appointed the members of the rent board. They've been busy at work. They meet, I think, twice a month, and they're making very good progress. We, in fact, today just had a very productive meeting with them, trying to further that work and get rent control in Pasadena to a place that they're implementing the charter provisions that the community passed. Another big thing we're working on is the council passed a resolution to try and go carbon-free by the year 2030 in our Pasadena power and the electricity that we use here in Pasadena. So you should know that we produce very little of our own power. We have a power plant on Glenarm, but it's what's called a peaker plant. It means we really fire it up only when we have to because it's really hot throughout California. Lots of people use their air conditioning and other electricity, and so they don't want to run out because once you produce electricity, you got to use it. There's limited storage capacity, but not a whole lot. And so we'll run it to make sure that we don't have blackouts when we're directed to do so by CalISO. But apart from that, we buy most of our electricity and then sell it to users here in Pasadena. Back in 2018, the council made a very wise decision. And they knew that we had a contract with what's called IPP, and they used coal to make the electricity that we use. And they directed staff at the time to not use that IPP contract and not extend it beyond 2027. So we have been working really hard to replace that coal-based electricity that we were getting with green energy. Most recently, we just entered into a contract for $312 million for geothermal energy. And we also entered into a contract for solar energy. We're going to keep looking at all of the different carbon-free, renewable energy sources to try to get us to carbon-free as soon as we can. And the last thing I'll do, because I was given 10 minutes, is talk about our economy. We have seen a shift in the economy here in Pasadena. We have a lot of people who are remote working, and that's had a big impact on some of our restaurants, at least during the lunch hour. The good news is we have so many incredible restaurants here in Pasadena, and people still come here to eat at the restaurants. You see it at night. At least I've gone to restaurants at night. You see a lot of people still coming to them. But we need to find ways to revitalize our vacant office space during the daytime, and we're really doing a lot of work to attract life sciences. We have a bunch of companies. One is called Protomer, one is called, what's the one on the East Pasadena? It starts with an X. Zencor, something like that, Zencor, HMRI, a whole bunch of life sciences, and we've made some changes in our regulatory framework to really attract more life sciences companies. What's great about life sciences is they're doing experiments, really trying to help us live better, healthier lives. So it's a good thing to be in. But they also do a lot of experiments with things like bacteria and petri dishes and things where people have to come into work to really, work up all the stuff in the laboratory that they have. So that'll revitalize much of our, daytime restaurants and everything else in our businesses. So we're making really good progress working with a lot of partners on bringing life sciences to Pasadena. And not just that, we have an enormous partnership that just developed that we're helping facilitate between Caltech and Carnegie. And I'll just put it this way, they're both leading in the world of astronomy. And Caltech has its telescopes in Hawaii. Carnegie has its telescopes in Chile. And the reason that matters is they're the biggest telescopes in the world. They see the furthest and all that. The ones in Chile see the southern hemisphere, so they can see that part of the skies. And the ones in Hawaii sees the northern hemisphere. With this partnership, they're going to be able to see the whole sky for the first time and make many more discoveries about our universe. It's really incredibly exciting work. We're so lucky to have them, JPL, and so many other beautiful institutions. So with that, that's some of the big updates that we're doing, and I'm happy to answer questions if you'd like.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? I think there's a microphone back there.
I was just wondering what property were you referring to when you said was a gas station a long time ago? I didn't hear.
How big is the site? I can't remember, 2.83 acres? So almost 3 acres, and it's on the corner of, it's going to be the southeast corner of Villa and Lake. Did I get that right? But it's a big, so one little tiny piece of it had a gas station a long time ago. The old Kaiser Hospital, that's correct. That's why we call it the Kaiser site, the Kaiser Clinic.
What's happening with the YWCA?
So the YWCA has been a long journey. Most recently, when I got here, it was still in litigation. It was at the Court of Appeal stage. You go in the courts, there was a sequel lawsuit that went from the trial court, which ruled in the city's favor. And then they appealed, and it went to the Second District Court of Appeal. I saw the oral argument on that case, and then they decided that probably in November, December, and they again affirmed and said the city had a right to move forward with it. And then the people that brought the lawsuit decided to make what's called a petition for review at the California Supreme Court. And so it had to go before the California Supreme Court, and they did what they called denied review. Then the case was finally finished in about February. And once we got clearance on CEQA, now we're moving forward. We're in the middle of negotiations with a developer who is looking to keep it historic and develop it in a way that I think supports all of the city's goals. So it is finally moving forward once again after about 3 or 4 years of litigation where it was stuck for a little bit. That's the update there. Yep, and I think they want you to speak in the microphone. I think there's someone else at the microphone, but if you want to come.
Yeah,
next.
the microphone's back here, but while we wait for you to come back to the microphone, I just wanted to highlight that I'm a member of the rental board, Allison Henry. We brought some informational sheets that have been promised to the public. They're on the table, so if you have any questions as a landlord or tenant about rent control, Measure H, we have flyers on the table. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that announcement. So the question was about the abandoned houses on the 710, but you said JPL. I understand them to be owned by Caltrans? Yeah, Caltrans homes. Those are in the process. Senator Portantino passed the bill, our state senator from here. He got the legislature to pass a bill where if they're vacant homes, they're going to be allowed to be sold to the city for the price that they were paid for when they were taken by eminent domain a long time ago. And then we can, in turn, sell them, and whatever money we make in profit, if you will, or additional funds, we can then use that money to build more affordable housing. So we are in the process, they've identified so far 17 vacant homes. And just, it's kind of interesting, the way housing prices have gone up so much. They're big homes. Some of them are really big and nice. The first 17 will cost us less than $1 million to buy. And then we can turn them around, sell them, and again, use the money that's generated from that for more affordable housing. So that's in process. We got the list maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Let's take 2 more questions.
Oh, I had 2 questions. No, I'm just kidding. First question, and I guess I'll just do one then. What is the city doing to bring fiber into the community, especially in this neighborhood? Because we have very limited access to internet beyond spectrum, and I'd love to see more choice.
Yeah, that gets to be a very complicated question because of the marketplace for fiber. I do know that our very own councilman is looking into it, and he's going to be meeting with our director of what's called Do It, which is the Department of IT. We do have fiber infrastructure. We do actually lease it out to JPL and Caltech and a couple of other institutions. It's a whole nother ballgame when you talk about wiring up fiber into each individual home and to make it available. But it's something that will be explored to see if we can do it cheaper and give people other options. I don't want to give any false hopes because there's a lot of complexity, but it is being looked into.
Thank you, Mr. Márquez. I'm wondering if the city is potentially looking at mixed-use zoning to help the economy for people who are working remotely, because we're seeing an increase in that, to have them be closer to businesses and restaurants and cafes and the sort to further increase the economy.
The whole question of land use decisions, which is a big part of what cities do, is sort of smack in the middle of lots of controversy because it gets mixed in with the affordable housing and the homelessness issue. So much of that is being dictated by Sacramento right now. A lot of development by right around transit hubs, things like that. And then locally, we're doing a lot with specific plans. So I don't know the details in my head. I know it's very complicated because we're getting lots and lots of laws passed out of Sacramento. We can't even digest them into our own plans before they pass another slew of bills. But I think you will, in the end of the day, see lots more housing options made available throughout the city. Again, mostly, the problem I have with it is the reason land use is a local issue is because you want it to respond to what the community wants. And we have 488 cities in California. They're very different from one another. Us compared to, LA County has 10 million people. I think it's Alpine County has 1,500 people. And it's big, but it just has almost nobody. And so think of the cities in those different places. And to think that you can pass one law for all 488 cities that makes sense to everybody really is not the best way to do land use planning. But it is the way we're structured. It is what's happening in Sacramento. And I think for you, given your question, I think you're going to see a lot more options for you, and remote workers who want to live near economic activity, restaurants, and whatever else. You're going to see lots more of that so long as it's going to be near transit hubs.
I want to sneak in. I heard you guys said 2 more. I've been living in District 3 since '98. My family, I've raised 2 sons that have kept out of trouble. And I want to address what I just saw there on the screen, safety in our community. That's important as a family man, raising kids in our community, right? And I happen to live on Barthay Drive, and trees in Pasadena are protected. And at night on Barthay, we have the only park. Like summertime, if you want to take your kid over to the park or something like that, you got to go through dark corridors on Barthay just to get to the park. I can cross Lincoln and go on Cypress, and they got lower lamping. And I'm trying to figure out what happened in the past that I can cross the street and they got lower lamping, but on Barthay, when you cross Lincoln, you got these telephone poles high above the trees that don't light the area. You know, I walk my dogs. I can see beer cans in the dark areas. People hang out in the dark areas near the park. And so it's a matter of safety. What happened, or can you address that? Why we can't have lower lamping on Barthé? Not all the streets have the oak trees that are protected, but Barthé does.
Well, thank you for the question. As you know, I've been here less than a year, so I don't know why that happened. And I just glanced at Director of Public Works, Tony Olmos, and he said he can address that. So he'll address it, we can look into it. You also have coming up next, I think, our Chief Gene Harris on safety. He'll address safety issues in the community as well. So I can't provide you that answer other than to say we can look into it, and I think maybe Tony and Gene can talk a little bit about that. All righty, thanks.
All right, up next to provide an overview of public safety items, we'll welcome up Chief Gene Harris.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see all you folks here tonight. It means you care about your community, so I'm happy to see you here. Hi, Ms. Hughes. Well, I'm going to start off with the good part of the update, because every update's got kind of a bipolar sense to it, right? There's always some good, a little bit of bad, and we want to try to find ways to mitigate some of those things, improve upon the things that we're doing really well, and really try to mitigate the things where we have some issues. People who've been here, living in this community for a long time, know that we've had some external challenges. I'll talk about the internal challenges here in a second. But one of the highlights of this year so far, and it's a tragedy to have anybody lose their life. It's a tragedy. Trust me, I come from that club that nobody wants to be a part of, having lost my son to violence. Nobody wants to be in that club. But this year, through August, this point in August, we've had 2 homicides in the city. That's too many. So I'm not by any stretch of the imagination trying to say that that is a good thing. But if you look at the years past, we've fallen off precipitously from what it used to be in the high double figures. And this year alone, we've had 29 shootings. I think we're up to 30 now with what happened this week. And that is a far drop off from what we've experienced in the past, where we were up, in the high double figures, the 90s, and sometimes the triple figures in the number of shootings we had in our city. So part of that credit goes to people in this community like yourselves who are doing the see something, say something, really paying attention to the mantra of trying to kind of prevent some of these things from happening. Some of the credit is due to interactions and relationships between the police department and community organizations and different folks, city managers and people who've come along and said, hey, we're going to make this a safe community, as is stated up on the screen here. And so there's a lot of the back patting a little bit to go around, and I think that people should take some solace in those kudos. But we've got a lot of work to do in order to make that number 0. And that's the commitment from the police department, is to really try to get that number, those numbers to 0. To mitigate crime, remove fear from the community. The gentleman was talking about being able to walk and go to places where they have to go. I'm sure you've heard in the past a term called CPTED, which is community policing through environmental design. That is still a real thing. We can create an environment that helps to eliminate crime and opportunities for crime, and we've begun that process from a law enforcement perspective in earnest, but the city has been doing that for a long time. It just takes time sometimes to get to those things. The Public Works Director and I will certainly be working on a lot of things to try and improve our responses to those things. He's very, very good to work with, very responsive to the needs of this community, and I'm hoping to just follow suit. But those are opportunities for us to really employ what I call the 3 E's. And that's how the police department is going to approach how we conduct public safety and policing in this community. The first one is education. We've got to educate folks and make sure everybody's aware of what it is, one, that's happening in the community, have an infrastructure and the facilities to be able to put information out so that you're up to speed on things that are going on, and even predicting things that may be happening in the future so that we can put warnings out. The second E is engineering. That's where we work together with people at Public Works, other entities, to try and engineer solutions that are environmentally based to prevent crimes from happening. A a simple solution you might see around already is putting humps and things on benches so that they don't become sleeping places. Changing watering patterns on places so the grass, people don't lay around on the grass and those kind of things. And so there's a whole host of things that we can do from an engineering perspective to improve the environment, to decrease the opportunities for crime. And then the last thing is the enforcement piece. And so we want to make sure that the enforcement piece for us is last, except when absolutely necessary. So the idea is to work through community solutions, work through solutions that benefit all people that are living in this community, all the residents, businesses, and visitors, and then hope that that enforcement effort is, or the need for enforcement is reduced, and the enforcement effort can really be effective in solving those that are major issues for the community. So on an update perspective for us, we just gotten through, I just completed the 180-day transition plan that I gave to my boss, and we talked about the things we wanted to take a look at in the organization so we could make some improvements. A lot of it had to do with our promotional processes, our internal affairs investigations, a lot of things that directly at some point will reach out and touch this community. And so I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but Pasadena is one of the rare cities that has 3 oversight bodies. There's an independent police auditor, there's a Citizens Police Oversight Commission, and there's a Public Safety Committee, amongst all of you who are also auditors in the community. And so we take that very seriously in order to try to make the changes that we need to make and anticipate the needs of this community. And so the updates are that we're trying to meet those needs by making sure we adjust our policies, make sure we're certainly paying attention to our practices, and doing the things that can really bring the type of police services and public safety services that you're hoping for to this community on a regular basis. And so the change in the culture for us is to really bring a community back to what it is we're doing. And unfortunately in law enforcement, we get really good at doing what law enforcement does. We're specifically trained to do certain things. And if it's not watered, right, it's that kind of grass that will grow out of control, and we kind of lean in the direction. So it needs to be tended with good policies and practices so we keep it on the straight and narrow. And that's the idea of what we're going to be doing moving forward with our policies and practices, and making sure that we're making changes that positively impact the community. With some of the issues with crime, crime is up, it's running rampant in the state. We make no excuses. I take crime personally. I don't want any of you to have to be afraid to walk your community. Don't want anybody to be afraid to have to go outside and take advantage of all the beauty that is Pasadena. So we're working with other agencies. I happen to be a part of a group called the LA County Police Chiefs Association, and we are working with the other 45 police chiefs in the County of Los Angeles and the Sheriff's Department to provide solutions to crime problems. We're also working with representatives from the DA's office to try to find ways to, those people who need to be in jail and be away from the street, get those people off the street, but find ways that those people that we can't arrest our way out of crime, that we get those people to services, and find ways to reintegrate those people into what it is we need to do to have a really safe society. So we're working on those things every day. There's a legislative period that's coming up, there's elections that are coming up, and we're working on trying to really establish some practices and principles that will be completely based on the need for significant public safety. And so I am open for communications at any time for people to call me and find out what that process is like and what it's happening and how we can impact Pasadena. I'll take those calls, and we can talk about it. We can chop it up. So I'm willing to come anywhere in any community. Thank you for the welcome here to speak to you today, but we'll go anywhere, even to the local communities. If you have a block party or something and you just want to get information, just call my office and we'll come out and talk to you. From an organizational perspective, in the last 8 months, we've completely turned over our command staff. Our command staff is one of the most diverse command staff units anywhere in the county. And to my, I shouldn't say surprise, but to my glee, I guess, for lack of a better word, it really is a command staff that knows exactly what it's doing. And we're going to turn all of that knowledge and skill and experience to developing a police department that can represent that when they're outside in the community. We've also are in the middle of doing a lot of promotions for supervisory and management positions. And again, we're including diversity, equity and inclusion as part of that process, but we're also looking to make sure we're putting the smartest people in place that are willing to be problem solvers, to go out in advance of problems happening and trying to find ways to keep those problems from happening. We've sent a few people, including myself, to a course called Command College, where all we do is futures thinking. and we try to develop problems or solutions to problems that may not even exist today so that we can prevent those problems from impacting you in the future. And we're opening those doors to try and get a lot of our people to those courses. In fact, my adjutant, Lieutenant, is she back there, Lieutenant Cuellar? She's currently in Command College, and our commander of the patrol division just graduated from Command College. And so we're trying to make sure that we're a smarter organization, doing things much smarter way, making sure that we are being problem anticipators more than, clearly we want to solve problems, but if we can anticipate them and keep them from happening, I would think that's the best outcome for everybody involved. So again, on update stuff, we just had National Night Out, which was a huge success. And that thing was created to make sure that we are getting police and community together to come together as a group to let criminals know, to let would-be criminals know that, you know, this is not the place for that. We want people to live in peace, harmony, and certainly community engagement, and that's going to be the goal. So here shortly, I'll be giving an update to CPOC, but I'll give you one organizational update, at least a short one until that detailed update takes place. But we've also implemented some new changes as far as the organizational structure. One of those changes is we've created the Street Crimes Unit. Street Crimes Unit is an iteration of gang enforcement, but with a little different twist. We used to have what was called the SES, which was the Special Enforcement Section. And I think that we incorporated some old school mindsets about how we deal with gang activity and gang enforcement. And we left out a lot of the education and some of the other elements. So with Street Crime Unit, what we've done is brought a group together with our neighborhood action team and brought a team together that can do the gang enforcement piece, but with a neighborhood twist and making sure we're out meeting and introducing ourselves to community members and working through the gang interdiction process and certainly the gang intervention process to try and eliminate some of these problems in our communities. The other part is we're not going out there, and if you can see this in your mind's eye, lining up our 10 best against the 10 best in the street and being heavy-handed. That is an old school method of dealing with those kind of problems and situations. And we want to look at it much smarter, more like a surgeon, looking for the things that are actually wrong, mitigating those issues, and not having it impact the balance of the community in such a way that it creates disharmony. So we're going to be doing that part of it much smarter. We're going to be doing it with a lot of technology. Again, it's not us going out there and trying to just, hammer the problem into submission, but we want to go out there and finesse it so that it never becomes a problem again. And we're keeping youngsters from going down the road that might create circumstances where they get involved in that. So there's a lot going on in the police department, open to really sit down and have conversations with anyone. And with that, I know we are short on time. I will take any questions that you have.
I live in Kings Village. It's Washington and Fairfax. Kings Village, I know it's old, and we have a lot of people come new and know. We need check that area. We have new neighbors, new managers, and new owners. Before we had the police and the city come and making the neighborhood watching. I'm by myself. I still watching. But we need to support me. I can do it by myself. And I look in anywhere, in a city hall and everywhere, to come support me. We don't have it, especially the police. When I call, my neighbors call, nobody answered. I don't know what happened. They said they don't have a police in the city. I don't know if it's that true or no. This is my problem because we have kids. Now it's a grade 14, 18, and they use drugs, and they sell drugs inside the King Village when they don't have it before. Before happened, but then it stopped. But now they start. 2 years ago, they start again. And need to support that area because we have a lot of damage, the trash outside in the street, and before Fairfax, Washington, they don't come to clean. So we need to support. And the manager, they told me, please go tell us I need to support because we don't have no time to come, but next time we came and they can display. So we came in the name to the manager, and we know the owners. We don't know the owners. Some owners came, they said the owners, but I don't know if it's that true or no. Never present the owner and the new owner, and a lot of people came inside to the Kings Village. Supposed to the Kings Village, only the people live there have a permit. Anybody lives there. And the car parking space is full. Before, no, now it's full. So this is a problem we have in the Kings Village.
Okay, you've addressed quite a bit, and I really feel, I'm sorry that if you had that experience when contacting the police department. That is certainly not the way we want to provide our services, if that's been your experience. But that's the exact reason why the Street Crimes Unit was created, to pay attention to those special problems. We've increased our number of park safety officers. So our park safety officers, the light blue shirt folks, are now in the parks and trying to make sure that we're providing that extra level of security. Additionally, we've upgraded our cameras in many places around the city. We used to have a little bit, the technology, hadn't been brought up to speed yet, but due to the folks in Public Works and some of the others in the city staff, and certainly with decisions made by the council, we've gotten some really high-tech cameras that allow us to monitor those in real time. And so we're utilizing those to try to address those problems that you're talking about. If we don't respond to something that you're having a problem with, call my office directly. But community relations is also another element of our department that can support you because they handle and deal with the neighborhood watch and the community watch evolutions. You can get a hold of our folks, or I can get your information before I leave and I can have our folks get a hold of you. But either way, it's unsatisfactory for us not to respond to you if that's the case, and we need to improve, and I will.
Thank you. And then what happened to the National Night Out? We, in my Kings Village, we're doing the first time our inauguration in Kings Village. What happened? No party this year.
Well, National Night Out, we had a really big party at the city, on the city side from 5 to 7, 7:30ish. And then there were numerous parties across the city. And so we broke our public safety services and our folks into different groups to try to make it to as many of those parties as we could. And so I hit 4 that night myself. We tried to split it up a little bit so we were spreading the wealth. If we didn't get out to you and there wasn't a party there that was organized for your folks, we'll get on that for next year and make sure you're a priority.
Thank you.
But we made it around to many of them for the day. But it's a big city with a lot of parties. So,
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so
all right,
much.
thank you.
Chief Harris, I just wanted to applaud your team. My name's Katie Brandon, and I'm the Executive Director of Pasadena Village, and we're out at many different community events, and we see our finest in blue there too. Read Across America, last Tuesday's National Night Out, at the Clergy Community Coalition, and it means a lot to have representatives from the police department at so many community events, so thank you.
Thank you for that. And we want you to make us earn that. We're going to continue to do that. That'll be the mantra of this police department to ensure we're engaged with this community. So thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Gina, and I have a kind of question around the new unit that you are opening up because I have a little bit of some concerns around that unit. And with that being said, like I know the city used to contract community intervention workers, or also known as peace workers, and I think they have other name like gang interventionist. Those are sort of the 3 terms that I hear that type of work. Often they're individuals who used to be in the gang life and they've reformed their lives and they support often people to come out of the life. And so I know the city used to contract with those workers. I don't really know where that is at, but I can tell you like in the city of Los Angeles, they contract with those workers, and the city of LA saw like a 30% reduction in crime and like 45% reduction in violent crimes. And I think even de-escalating gang crimes because of the positive impact that they were playing in the community. And there was definitely a difference between sort of like an agreement between LAPD and intervention workers on who did what. So I'm kind of wondering like if the Pasadena Police Department is interested in that type of programming and where that program is, because I know the city of Pasadena used to contract with intervention workers.
The city currently contracts with an intervention group. It's through our public health department. It's not associated with the police department. There are a lot of reasons for that, but there is a group that's working here, and I'm told that their work is stellar on the front end of the gang intervention piece. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that maybe the reason there's only been 29 shootings this year is for some of the efforts that they've put forth at preventing the crime. So that is an effort that's in place, constantly being evaluated. I'm all for it, all for intervention groups and intervention opportunities. And this city is open to doing that. We want to do whatever we can, certainly to mitigate a lot of the crime activity or get people from the criminal element and try to turn them in a different direction. So I myself, with the group that I'm in, work with an intervention strategy through parole. And we try to get people before they get out or released from jail and return back to the community to try and point them in the right direction to some interventionist folks who can get them to services, jobs, the things that they can use to not become part of that recidivism rate. And so we're working on things like that. We're working on legislation. One of the things we're talking about is including removing the need to have a record identified on an application for certain types of crimes that they may have committed if people have already gotten through and done their time. So if you've done your time, you've paid your dues, and you've completed your parole, it seems a little bit double jeopardy-ish, for lack of a better term, to then have to write that on an application that will completely preclude you from getting the jobs that you seek. So we're trying to work on some of those things through the channels with the legislative committees with LA County chiefs, and we'll try to get there. But I am a proponent of that, and we're already doing portions of that, yes.
So we do employ those because intervention workers are public health workers because they play a role in community safety. I just don't understand why Pasadena PD would need to open up a new unit if there's already people doing this work.
Well, the SCU and the gang efforts that we put forward, those are enforcement efforts. Those are on the enforcement side of the house. And so this is a group that investigates crimes, that investigates criminal entities. This is not an intervention unit, although intervention may be something that they see in their daily duties if they get an opportunity to come across people who they can impact. But the official intervention portion of what you're talking about is something that's done by the contracted services through the Department of Public Health. So there are two distinct issues. The SCU are sworn police officers, not former gang members or reformed folks for the community that are going to go back out. So two different entities that shouldn't be confused.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Alejandro Huerta. I live at 735 North Orange Grove. Just wondering if it's possible or what the process would be to try to install cameras at that intersection at Lincoln and Orange Grove to try to deter graffiti and illegal car stunts. We've had many incidents of that in the last 2 months. So I'm curious if that would be possible or what the city's process would be to install some sort of cameras to deter the graffiti and the illegal car stunts. Thanks.
Well, I think there's always an opportunity to improve our infrastructure. There are certainly costs. There are infrastructure needs that we have to evaluate. So there are a lot of things that go into it. We certainly, as much as we would like to, can't just walk out and throw a camera up and everything's good. Requires the ability to monitor. You heard the city manager talk about fiber and the difficulty in getting fiber down to all the many elements that come into it. Some of those same elements apply. But in places where we've had the basic infrastructure to apply it, we've done some of those things and put some cameras in places. I wish we could have a camera at every intersection. That would create a lot of protection for us, kind of a protective bubble. But in order to get there, that's going to take a lot of time. And we're going to try and really emphasize prioritizing those places where we can go that, and perhaps that intersection is one. The patrol commander is sitting in the role you're sitting in right now. So if you could get a hold of him, we can talk about those needs.
So the name of the woman who was killed yesterday is Tanisha Houston, and she was shot by a neighbor. Her 3 children, her husband, and her mother were all there when it happened. And I want to share that your officers actually gave her mother bruises at Huntington Hospital. And I find it really distasteful the way that victims of shootings and their families are treated by the Pasadena Police Department, oftentimes as suspects themselves. There was another incident with a young man who was shot at Jackie Robinson a few years ago, and he actually, for fear of his own safety, voluntarily left Huntington Hospital prior to even having his wounds fully dressed. And I find this really problematic. There are also studies done about how shooting victims, particularly Black male shooting victims of shootings, are discriminated against both by the police departments and the hospitals themselves. And I think this is long overdue for your department to address. Additionally, I want to state that Aguilar, who you pointed out as one of your department's smartest, has actually made threats to community members who are not even talking to him, and I've been witness to it. So did your deputy chief, Art Shute. I never met him before, but he called me by my first name after a community police oversight commission meeting. And I find the way that your officers try to intimidate people from the public who are actually trying to make this city and your officers more community-minded and caring to be really disappointing, especially when it comes to the treatment of Officer Crutchfield, a Black woman officer who is receiving more personnel issues and discipline than even Edwin Dumagwendon, who an independent report found was out of policy and violated your department's policy in numerous occasions for actually trying to de-escalate a scenario with Officer Palacios, who has escalated nonviolent encounters with the public on numerous occasions in traffic stops and also in mental wellness issues. And I just think that that this is not really lining up with what you're saying right now, which is that you're trying to hold your department to better policies when one of the first officers to be disciplined is somebody from the community who's trying to improve the department and who gently, I saw the video, gently tried to talk to Palacios, and you can see how shaken up he is in confronting her back. He actually shoves her with considerable force, and everybody else starts saying, "Oh, Crutchfield, Crutchfield, Crutchfield," in the video. It seems like there's a lot more to address in terms of culture, and I think like Aguilar, you pointing out Aguilar as the smartest when he's been historically part of that culture at PPD for decades, just points out to that. Also, if anybody wants to donate to Tanisha Houston's family, who is seeking a hotel stay for the remainder of this week, as they do not feel safe going back to the apartment where she was killed, please let me know. I can give you the Cash App info of a family member.
So you're aware, the city is also attempting to find a place for the family to reside and putting efforts forward through the fire department. Our fire chief and city manager have been working on that since yesterday. We're also working on some Red Cross resources to help the family. I personally spoke to the family at the police station yesterday. They were there for most of the day, and the interaction that we had following that case, it's a tragic case, but the interaction we had at the police department that day was about trying to bring that family some solace and some peace given their tragedy. So any help from the community is welcomed, and we thank her for bringing that out to you folks. So if there's an opportunity for you to assist, that's great. It's the community coming together, but the police department will also be a part of that process.
Okay. I listened to you, Chief Harris, talk about the different trainings that's going on. I didn't necessarily hear about community engagement. What type of training is going on with police officers in creating relationship with community members. Adriana brought up some things about misconduct. I didn't necessarily hear you address what you all are doing, what accountability looks like when it comes to misconduct within the Pasadena Police Department. I know that recently some media came out about police officers drinking while on duty, and we have not really heard what type of disciplinary actions are taken when our officers are in our streets and in our neighborhoods, and their behavior is unacceptable. So I thought it was pretty interesting, Chief Eugene Harris, that when you talked about how crime has decreased, you actually went all the way back to the 90s to use that as a comparison. You brought up about the gang interventionist that's hired through the Pasadena Health Department. We would like to know what type of impact that gang interventionist program has, how it has affected decreasing crime in our neighborhoods. And you also brought up the CPOC. What is your relationship with the CPOC? Do you guys actually adhere to the concerns that the civilian oversight or community oversight actually brings to the Pasadena Police Department and to the city council members? So we understand that all these different overlays of accountability are in place for the Pasadena Police, but what actually is tendering discipline? Thank you.
Well, when it comes to employment matters, personnel matters, there will never be an opportunity for me to tell you what some of those disciplinary measures are. I'm precluded by doing that, from doing that by law. And so that's just the nature of the state of California and the laws that we are adhering to. But what I can tell you is that every other week we sit in review of cases that we think, either we think or it's been reported that there's been police misconduct, and we do a review of those cases and try to mete out discipline as quickly and as robustly as possible, and I've done that. The cases that you're talking about, the only person in the entire city who has all of the facts, every one of the facts about what's going on is me, because that's the way the law is written, to make sure that we don't have things that violate people's rights. The idea of external forces, I guess, for lack of a better word, or external folks chiming in on things that they don't really have a whole lot of connectivity to, seems to kind of throw it a little bit out of whack, because it makes people believe that things are going on that aren't. And so I'm going to be quite frank with you, that when people come to me and tell me things that are going on in the department, we take it serious. We have an investigative process. We're required by law to investigate any complaint that comes in. We're constantly listening to the IPA, the Independent Police Auditor, on ways we can improve that process. There were 27 recommendations that were made from the OIR, 25 of which we agreed to. There were 10 use of force recommendations that came from the IPA, all 10 of which we agreed to. And we have to report back to those groups that we're implementing those practices and policy changes, and we will do that. The relationship with the CPOC is we are starting with the same interest, and the interest is to provide a high quality of life and really provide robust police services in the safest, most, in a manner that befits what is expected from this community. And so CPOC is a group of folks from the community who have specific interest in ensuring their city is policed properly. And our interest is to ensure that we're working with them to make sure that happens.
Just really quick, as you mentioned the word complaints, and oftentimes I'll listen to city council meetings, I'll go to the CPOC meetings and different meetings that you are speaking at and others on the city council. I hear that you all say there's not too many complaints made about the Pasadena police. I tend to differ, because we do receive information of things that are not up to par within the Pasadena Police. So I just wanted to find out, when people come to the city council, when people write in information and write their concerns, do you all see those as complaints or concerns that you all are addressing? Or does, when we're coming up, like even right now, are these concerns also put down as maybe complaints that should be addressed?
I consider every time somebody has something they want to address, fix, find out information, I consider those complaints, and we should take the appropriate action to address them. The question is, what action are we going to take? Is it an operational complaint? Is it an administrative complaint? Is it a legal complaint? There are many different types of complaints, and so we have a robust response strategy to deal with all of those things in a certain way. A lot of times we're talking about formal complaints, the formal complaint procedure that's covered by the penal code. Those are formal complaints that come in that we are required to either look at as an internal affairs investigation or apply some other investigative technique to deal with it and then maintain those records. And so there are those official complaints that we have to look at. But there are all kinds of complaints that we have to make sure we're addressing. And all of those come from people calling me, even on my cell phone. You've called me on my cell phone with complaints about things that I've addressed with you directly. And so there are all kinds of methods that we need to put to work. But the whole goal is to communicate that effectively so that they're not left wanting to know in the cases where we can explain it, what happened. So generally I'll explain, the general terms of things, but sometimes I can't be as specific with the public simply because it's precluded by law. But where I can discuss things, I will always be open with people in the community and at least give them enough information so that when they leave, they know that they've gotten the best that we can give them as far as the truth and the open information. Yep. Okay.
Thanks, Chief. All right, finally, we'll welcome up our Director of Public Works, Tony Olmos.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Tony Olmos. I've been with the city now for almost 2 years. I've been in the business now for actually 30 years. And most recently, I worked for the city of Brea and for some other Southern California cities. So what I want to do today, and I know we're on overtime a little bit, is just to give you a little bit of information in terms of what we're responsible for in Public Works, and then just go through some highlights of some projects. Councilmember Jones already did some of my job. He kind of covered some of them. I'll provide you a little bit more information on those, just so at least you know what's coming up. So my main area of responsibility, we have 5. What you're already familiar with is on the street maintenance side. We have staff that take care of the streets, the sidewalks, the trees. They also do the utilities, the sewers and the storm drains. And we also have a crew, actually we have 4 people that take care of graffiti. And we know that that's been a very hot problem lately. And we've been doing our best just to going out there and removing them within 24 hours. That's really one of our main goals, is to try to keep it off the wall, as quickly as we can. We also have the refuse division. That's one that takes care of the trash collection for residential. We do have contracts that do the commercial and industrial. And there's a program that started back in January of 22 for recycling your organic material, which is like your food waste. So there was information on that, and there's more to come on that, but that's something that's ongoing. Another thing that I know it's also, something that's a challenge that we're continuing to do our best to continue keeping up with is with the bulky items. And we know that that's something that happens, and it doesn't mean that we're not putting resources out there. We have 3 trucks, we have 6 full-time staff. Their sole job is to collect items, big items, from whether they're scheduled, which is what we recommend, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit, or whether they're abandoned, and dealing with the property owners and giving them due notice so that they're able to, get their hauler to remove them first, and then we would act on citations or what have you to hold them accountable to controlling what's coming off their property. We also have our engineering division. They take care of all the capital improvement projects, the ones that we'll talk about. They'll develop the plan specifications, put them out for bids, and then they'll oversee the construction of those. And we also have CSC. I did want to highlight that because that is a really neat feature for the community. You could call, 311, if you want to place if you want to place any kind of service request, like if you see a pothole, you see a tree branch hanging down, you see sidewalk that's really, displaced, You can put those requests in and you'll get a response back, and CSE will then forward your request to the specific division that will need to handle it. What's really unique about CSE here in this city, and actually for the cities that I work for, it's very unique to Pasadena because the cities I work for didn't have a CSE, is that they also serve other departments. So like when Section 8 came out, the application period opened, we had our talking points. CSC had talking points in terms of frequently asked questions, and they were able to provide a call center. So it's not just for public works. They're able to provide information to try to make it easier for the residents to get answers to some of the questions you may have. So if you call CSC on anything related to the city, they'll forward you to the right place. If not, they'll answer the questions themselves. And one thing that I'll also promote for CSC is that there is an app. If you go to the app store, it's called Pasadena CSC. I highly recommend that you download the app, since that's a very quick way. You could even take a picture of something, it'll geocode it, and then it'll send it over to our staff. Our staff will forward over to the right division, and then that'll get the process going to getting that request addressed. And what we really want to celebrate is that CSC is going to turn 10-year-old, or it's going to have its 10-year anniversary in January of next year. So you're going to hear more about it. We want to celebrate it. We want to keep promoting it so that everybody can use it. And one piece of evidence, as we know that it's working, is that in the past, in the very beginning of, even going back 10 years, even less than that, we used to have a lot more illegal dumping that we had to respond to. So we got a lot of CSCs that says we have illegal, mattress, illegal whatever. So we're responding to those. And our recommendation is schedule the pickups. It's much better for everybody. When you schedule a pickup, you have a time, you put it out there, it's out there for a very short time. Our staff comes by, picks it up, and then, or the hauler does, and it's all over and done with. And we've seen a change in these last 10 years from the illegal dumpings being very big number to the schedule being smaller. So now the schedule has taken over, and now the illegal dumping is less. We still have a problem, and that's something we're going to continue working on. So I'll pass that on. So essentially, that's what the services that we provide. Some of the project highlights, I'll just highlight the big ones. So Robinson Park Pool, Councilmember Jones already talked about it. We are planning a grand opening. That's something that Parks Department is working actively right now to schedule it. That project should be completed by early next month, and the grand opening will be scheduled shortly after that. So we're really excited about getting that project going so that can serve the community. The other one on the unicycle track, there is a ribbon cutting scheduled for September 9th at 8:30 in front of City Hall. We invite everybody to come out and partake in that. Essentially what unicycle track did, you'll see it on the south side of the street between Hill and Arroyo. Now there's a dedicated area for bikes that will go in two directions. There were new signals that were put up that has indicators for when the bikes can go safely, crossing all the intersections. So it's a really neat, something very new to the city, and it's going to be celebrated on September 9th and open. So if you want to travel between one side from Arroyo all the way to Hill, and then there's another connection down Holliston, and then over to Cordova, so you can actually make a loop if you're interested in doing that. So that's really exciting. Brenner Park, as Councilmember also said, there was a contract already awarded for doing basketball court resurfacing, tennis court resurfacing, replacing the lighting on the courts, and making some walkway repairs. So that contract has already been awarded by City Council, and that one, we expect construction to start in the next couple of months. And we're going to have a community meeting for Brenner Park to renovate the playground. And that's something that you're invited to as well. That's going to be on August 19th. And Parks Department's coordinating that, and we welcome any input. Since the playground is far away from a lot of the other amenities, that's part of the discussion that's going to take place with the community, is how best to redesign this playground so that it can conform to all of those. Central Library, this is a really big one for us. Councilmember, it is in the Councilmember District 3. As you all know, the library's been closed since May of 21. So we have a whole design team. We've been very busy working with them. on developing what the proper fix is going to be, because we have to retrofit it so that it can withstand earthquake forces, because that's one of the main reason why we closed it, because it's unreinforced. So we're looking to come up with we came up with different approaches. We're going to be going to City Council on August 21st and presenting a comprehensive update for them, including these different alternatives, so that they can direct us in terms of which way they prefer that we move forward. And in the big schedule of things, if everything works out and we're able to get all the funding lined up, we're looking to go to construction in 25 and then have the library open in 28. Unfortunately, these projects, they take a long time to construct. We still have to go through the design process, figure out the funding, because it's going to be very expensive. But that's the update that we're going to be providing City Council on the 21st. And just a few more, and then I'll wrap up. As the city manager said, we are investing a whole lot more in the streets. And one of the things that, when you look at our pavement, there's a pavement condition index that we use. And when we compare ourselves to all our neighbors, we have the lowest pavement condition index, which means it's the worst. The best being 100, we're at 53 for the citywide. So what that means is that we need a whole lot more investment in the streets. And one of the issues is that you just don't take the money and repair the street that looks the worst all the time. You have to balance it. You have to save the good ones. So then that way you're able to still spend lower amounts of money on fixing the good ones, and you repair more of them. So with City Council support, we're able to have additional funding so we can balance between addressing those problem streets and then also taking care of the good ones so that we can make them last longer, so that don't get to that condition where they have all these potholes and all the problems that we have with them. And I do want to address the lighting a little bit. We do have a program within Public Works where we take in requests for any lighting needs. So that's something that you could talk to me after the meeting if you have a specific one. I know the speaker talked about certain locations where there might be trees and certain types of lighting. I do want to take that back to our staff so that they're able to provide a response. So if you don't mind, I'll give you my card after the meeting, and then I can connect you with our staff that will give you a very specific information regarding that request for additional lighting, because we do agree that is something that does help with safety. We just replaced some lighting on Raymond, where we replaced it with brighter LED lights just recently. And we trimmed some of the trees, so that seems to make a difference. And we're also looking to replace, right now we're also replacing lights, especially in District 3, at the intersections where you have signals. We're replacing all the lights at the intersections with LEDs so that they're brighter, so that the intersections are safer, so as you're driving through, people can see the cross traffic, as they're coming in the different directions. With the LED lights, they're much brighter, so you're able to see those. So in essence, I just want to kind of wrap up my updates on that. And if there's a few more minutes for questions, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Olmos. I had a question about street trees and the trees. Is that something that Public Works takes care of?
Yes.
So I know City of LA, they don't like trees on their streets. That provide shade for pedestrians and for bicyclists. So I was wondering what the future of trees looks like in Pasadena. It sounds like you take care of it. So is that something that we're going to increase the amount of trees in the city? And how would you look to introduce shade into the city?
So in the city, we're responsible for taking care of all the trees in the public right-of-way, which is really the street section. We have 60,000 trees in the public space. And we have an additional approximately almost 5,000 trees in the parks. So trees are near and dear to this city, and we do have a forestry division. Their sole job is to take care of the trees. So they have trimming schedules. Unfortunately, with that many trees, you are going to have some that are going to die or get diseased. So we do remove them, and then we have an annual replacement program where we put new trees in. Our main goal is to have the trees thrive so that they grow and they do provide that shade. Unfortunately, when we plant them, you can't plant a big mature tree, so they do come in smaller, so it's going to take a few years for them to grow and provide that shade. But our goal is to continuously replenish the ones that we remove and try to add as many more as we can. We also partner with Pasadena Beautiful. They're a nonprofit organization that's very committed to improving our urban forest. We partner with them in some cases. We're planning on planting a certain tree in a certain location. And with the request from the neighbors or the resident adjacent to the tree, they may be able to upgrade that tree to the next size up at no cost to the resident, just because they want to participate in partnering with us and with the community. So trees are a high priority, and that's something we're going to continue maintaining as best we can.
Hi. I wanted to bring a concern that I noticed an increase of skid marks or people. Oh, my name is Rene Gonzalez. I'm a citizen of District 3. So I noticed a lot of skid marks on Lincoln and Orange Grove. Like people have increasingly going out there to, just do spins. And so this is, I guess, also for Chief Harris. I'm wondering, as far as the street maintenance, I know there's, it looks bad because I live on that area. And also, they have also went down to the Roosevelt School. It's a dead-end street. I think it's Pasadena Avenue. So it's off of Orange Grove. So they have went all the way to the inside of that street. And so what I would like to see is some type of for the city to acknowledge these people are doing that and that is a danger, but also to come up with a plan to deter these people from doing that, of course, with penalties like steam, cleaning the streets or power washing the streets at their cost, and also some impounding of their vehicles, extra fines and stuff. So I would like to see that this gets addressed in a way that it will in the future deter these people. So they should be liable for the cost of cleaning the streets, and there should also be some further penalties to avoid that. Okay. So again, I noticed that on Lincoln Avenue by Peoria and also Orange Grove, and at the end of Pasadena Avenue by Roosevelt Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes. So what we'll do is we work with our police department and Department of Transportation, because Department of Transportation, they're the ones that do all the traffic management and traffic mitigations. And with Public Works, we do the street cleaning and things like that. So we will work together to see if there's any options for how to address it. And this is not just a Pasadena. If you watch the news, you'll see it. Different cities, they all have the same problem where you have these street takeovers and you have, the people spinning out in the intersections. So it's definitely a problem, but we can learn from the other people as well. We can learn from the other cities in terms of how they're mitigating it. And a lot of it is just the partnership between us, police department and Department of Transportation. So we'll definitely continue talking about that and seeing what we can do.
Let's do one more question. We got to get out of here by 8 o'clock.
I have a couple questions. The first is regarding your surveillance cameras on your public works buildings. If you have your own retention policy, and I ask that because the Pasadena Water and Power, they actually manage the surveillance camera that would have recorded Officer Duncan recovering the gun that was alleged to belong to Anthony McLean, even though it was located on the opposite side of the street that he was on. And the detective, I believe his name was Edgar Sanchez, who took that footage from Pasadena Water and Power, he cut the footage from the moment that Duncan walks up to where the gun was allegedly found. And Officer Duncan also turned off his body-worn camera footage at that same moment. So there's what the independent auditor called an evidence gap. There was an evidence gap at that moment that Pasadena police allegedly recovered the gun. And when I contacted Pasadena Water and Power, they said that footage after, I think it was like 30, 60, or 90 days, it automatically gets recorded over. So by the time that it was publicized that was all 8 seconds that was saved from the surveillance camera footage, at multiple angles, only 8 seconds. It was already too late to make the request for the full extended footage because the footage had already been recorded over. So my question is, does Public Works have your own retention policy? And I would like to encourage you, if you don't, could you please adjust that? And if there's any critical incidents relating to the Pasadena Police Department's misconduct, if you could save that footage yourself for 24 hours, because I think that it was like a big injustice that was done at the hands of PPD detectives. And then my other question is regarding, because you said you want to invest in the streets, literally invest in the makeup of the streets. But I know that there are programs like Great Streets, grant programs, and I want to encourage your department to also invest in the communities on those streets, and invest in the people who've lived in there and not just the gentrifiers. Because as studies have shown, bike lanes actually also improvements to public transportation, while usually well-intentioned, usually increase to the gentrification of an area. So I want to ask, how is your department promoting public safety, and also the communities that have lived there for years often were rooted there not by choice but by redlining? And how can you make sure that you're not only investing in the physical nature of the streets, but the people who actually live and breathe and have created the communities on those streets on a daily basis?
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I know that we're almost out of time. A lot of the points that you raise are probably beyond Public Works. That's something that we need to discuss with the city manager and others. In terms of cameras, I'm not familiar with what our policy is in terms of retention or how we operate the cameras at the Public Works yard, if that's what you're referring to. That's something I can look into. And as far as the investment of the streets, right now the focus is on the streets. Anything beyond that would be something that would need to be discussed with other departments. Thank you.
Well, that will conclude our program today. So we appreciate everyone that came out. And I do have a quick announcement. It looks like the family of the victim who resided with her, they were given 3 vouchers for 3 nights stay at a local hotel, but also would encourage anyone to donate money if you can help as well. So thank you for coming out. We appreciate you.